Our sermon reading today comes from 1 Corinthians. For people, or you may be seated, sorry. For people who are stumbling toward ruin, the message of the cross is nothing but a tall tale for fools, by fools. But for those of us who are already experiencing the reality of being rescued and made right, it is nothing short of God's power. This is why the scripture says, I will put an end to the wisdom of the so-called wise, and I will invalidate the insight of your so-called experts. So now, where is the philosopher? Where is the scholar? Where is the skilled debater, the best of your time? Step up if you dare. Hasn't God made fools out of those who count on the wisdom of this rebellious and broken world? For in God's deep wisdom, He made it so that the world could not even begin to comprehend Him through its own style of wisdom. In fact, God took immense pleasure in rescuing people of faith through the foolishness of the message we preach. It seems the Jews are always asking for signs, and the Greeks are always on the prowl for wisdom, but we tell a different story. We proclaim a crucified Jesus, God's anointed. For Jews, this is scandalous. For outsiders, it's moronic. But for those of us living out God's call, regardless of our Jewish or Greek heritage, we know the anointed embodies God's dynamic power and God's deep wisdom. You can count on this. God's foolishness will always be wiser than mere human wisdom, and God's weakness will always be stronger than mere human strength. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. There was one line in there that just captivated me. For those of us who are already experiencing being set free, already, that what we believe in Jesus Christ isn't about the afterlife, isn't about some far off place in the future, isn't about something that we can't see or experience, but it's about today. It's about right here and right now, and we are already experiencing what it means to live in the freedom of the gospel, that we have already been impacted by the freedom that we receive in Jesus Christ. So, right, you remember what I did with the kids, that we were stuck, just stuck, only ever paying attention to ourselves, stuck in this vicious cycle of violence where we just can't seem to look up from our own greedy selves and see someone else with love, to take somebody else's concerns as real, as valid. And so Jesus coming into the world was maybe a gentle nudge to lift up our heads. And that gentle nudge to lift up our heads is incredible. Incredible impacts on who we are, on the way we live, on how we do life here, today, and now. And the church has been bringing this power into the world for thousands of years. Pretty much any industry in the world right now that starts with the letters HOS, the whole hospitality industry, hotels, hostels, hospitals, all of those things were started by the church. They only exist because of the church, because back in the days, right, when there weren't hotels yet, where there weren't hostels, when there weren't hospitals, there were these groups of people who decided to take care of others outside of their community, that they were willing to open up their doors to strangers, to people who were sick, and they allowed them into their lives. And so these little communities were kind of dotted along trade paths. And so those people along those trade paths knew, oh, those are the people who will take us in if we're tired. Those are the people who will feed us if we're hungry. Those are the people who will heal us when we're sick. And so as travelers were on a journey, they found their ways into monasteries and into convents, into church communities where they would be cared for. And then that funny little greed sin that only ever looks at itself, somebody saw that and said, I can make money off of that, right? And took it away from the church, and then here we have a hotel that now makes money from taking in those tired strangers along the way. And somebody thought, I can make money off of healing people. And so now we have hospitals and insurance companies that make tons of money off of taking in the sick and caring for them. But I'm not saying that those two industries are necessarily all bad, but it started because of the church. It started because of the goodness of community's heart to say, we will take these people in and care for them. We also have church to thank for the whole education institution. It was churches that was there, teaching people how to read, teaching people how to write, giving people an education. It was church that gave rise to this whole education system. Why? Because they looked around and they said, we have to care for these young ones. And we have to teach them, and we have to raise them, and we need to care for them, right? And there are still a lot of churches that are still in the business of caring for children. We have a daycare here, but for and large, that went off to another group of people. And so you can see the real impacts of what it means to be church in this world. Without church, we wouldn't have hospitals, we wouldn't have hotels, we wouldn't have schools, we wouldn't have places like restaurants even, right? A lot of that came from church too. And all of these nonprofit organizations all around town, because of churches. And so this real impact of what the gospel does in our world, you can see. It's a little hidden now. It's a little hidden now. You can't see it the same way as you could, but the church is still doing it. You can still look at the Gifts Men's Shelter, which is a particularly faith-based organization that says we are going to open up our doors and our lives for the sake of these men to be able to be safe, to get their feet back underneath them and to become a good, productive part of this community once again. And it's done because of the goodness of people's hearts who decide to look up from their belly buttons and not just to look at themselves the whole time. And so we can see the real impact of the cross, of Jesus Christ who came to give himself entirely for us. To say, I love you so much that I don't even care. I don't even care if you put me on a cross, if you beat me, if you forget about me, if you turn away from me, I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to love you, and even from the cross, I'm going to say, forgive them. They have no idea what they're doing. Forgive them. They have no idea what they're doing. They're just stuck, so stuck to staring at themselves. And it's so hard for them to look up, and so you just got to love them. You just got to love them. You got to keep loving them. And you learn that real quick when you have a 2-year-old. Right? If there's any little creature that's stuck only ever staring at itself, it's a 2-year-old. And you learn real quick, and they'll push your buttons because I think that's what they were made to do, is just to push buttons, right? If you have kids, you know that's what they're meant to do. They just keep pushing that button. They're trying to find the edge. They're trying to figure out where's the edge of your love here? How far can I stretch you? And you learn real quick that you just have to look at your child and say, God forgive him. He's got no idea what he's doing, right? God forgive him. He has no idea what he's doing. And that's the type of love God demonstrates for us. That God says, just forgive them. They have no idea what they're doing. Yes, they're going to go astray. Yes, they're going to push my buttons. But for the sake of life and for the sake of one another, I'm going to say, I forgive you. I'm going to take away all of that hostility. I'm going to take away your shame. I'm going to take away your pain. I'm going to take away any barrier that makes you think that God might not love you. I'm going to take it away. That's why Jesus comes into the world. Take away every single barrier that might be in the way between you and God and say, listen, I forgive you. You have no idea what you're doing. your love with me is fine. Don't worry about this. You don't have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about your afterlife. I got you. You're covered. And I'm going to keep loving you, and so share some of this love. Please, for the love of me, right? For the love of God, try and share some of this love with the people around you. Pick up your head, look up from your belly button, and show someone around you love. See that they're hungry and extend a hand to feed them. See that they need a place to feel safe and bring them in. Make a place where people might be able to feel the love of God right here and right now and know that it does make a difference. It does make a difference. Believing in Jesus isn't just about some far off thing in the future, but it's about today. It's about how we live, and it's about how we share that amazing love of God with people right now. Amen.